This is not advice, it is a warning. What you are about to learn will not just make you sharper, it is going to change the way you see people, the way you think, and the way you feel. It will strip away the illusions that keep most minds comfortable. It will reveal patterns you were never meant to notice. You will start to see the gears turning behind every word, every emotion, and every choice. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. There's a kind of intelligence that feels like power, but it comes with a cost. It can make you precise, aware, and almost untouchable. But without empathy, it's something else entirely. Control, the quiet ability to move people like pieces on a board. The same ability that can make you wise or cold, enlightened or manipulative. This is not a tip. This is a transformation. And like all power, it asks you one question before it takes root. What will you do with it? Before we dive deeper, take a breath, settle your mind. Whatever place you may be in, let yourself be still. Now, if you are ready, let's begin. And as you listen, tell me where you are and what time it is right now. I want to know the moment you chose to hear this. The brain hack you're going to learn is ancient, though it has only received a name from psychology in the last century. It's called metacognition, thinking about your own thinking. Most people who hear that phrase think it means self-awareness, but it's way more than that. It's the ability to step outside of the flow of your emotions and thoughts as they arise, to see them from a higher vantage point, to be both player and observer of your own mind. For most, this ability never fully awakens. Most make it through life reacting and never realizing they are reacting. They feel anger, and they become anger. They feel fear, and they follow it. They're pulled from one feeling to another, as if chained to invisible strings. But a metacognitive mind sees the strings. It studies them. It learns to pull them on purpose. Think of the mind as a chessboard. Most people in life are pawns, moved by impulse, habit, and emotion. The metacognitive thinker stands over the board. They don't cease to feel, but notice the feeling, asking themselves why now? What triggered this? What happens if I follow it? What happens if I don't? That question, what happens if I don't, is the first doorway to mastery. It creates space between stimulus and response. Inside that space, emotion loses control and intelligence begins. And it starts with this deceptively simple practice of metacognition called emotional labeling. It sounds small, but it changes everything. So when you feel something big, anger, jealousy, shame, anxiety, stop. Don't act. Label it. Say to yourself, I am feeling anger, or I am feeling fear. And when you do that, you take that emotion from the limbic brain and move it to the prefrontal cortex. From reaction into observation. This one shift, measured in milliseconds, rewires your access to power. Because what the brain can name, it can shape. What it can't name, it becomes slave to. But go deeper, because naming is only the beginning. When you feel anger, question yourself, is this really anger? Or is it embarrassment? Is this helplessness masquerading as fury? Is it fear of losing control? When you feel sadness, ask yourself, is this loss? Or is this self-pity? Is this exhaustion? The surface emotion is smoke. The real emotion is the fire. A metacognitive mind hunts for the fire. It seeks to know from whence the heat emanates, and not just the light. This may feel mechanical, even strange at first. It's like analyzing emotions that once seemed automatic. In time, though, this knowing becomes fluid. You can move through storms without drowning in them. You no longer say, I am angry, but instead I am noticing anger moving through me. It is a very slight difference, yet it changes everything. You are no longer trapped inside the feeling. You are standing beside it. Now watch what happens next. When you can observe emotion without acting on it, people become transparent. You begin to sense what they feel, even when they say nothing. Their tone, their pauses, their micro-expressions reveal truths they are not aware of. It's not mystical. It's neurological. Your mirror neurons and pattern recognition systems heighten when your emotional state is calm. You start reading the world with a precision that feels like intuition. It is the early stage of emotional intelligence, actual emotional intelligence, not that soft notion of kindness or charm, but the sharp awareness of how emotion drives behavior. You will know when someone's laughter hides discomfort, when a compliment conceals envy, when silence is not peace but punishment. But remember, this awareness does not come with any morality of its own. It is a tool. It can be used to heal or to wound, to guide or to manipulate, to see through deception or to practice it. For this reason, Thoth once wrote in an ancient Hermetic text, "He who watches thought without heart becomes a shadow of his own mind." The ancients knew that power without compassion corrodes the soul. So, how do you employ this power safely? By training your mind to question itself without erasing empathy, by remembering that emotions are not enemies, they're messages. The goal is not to silence them, but to listen without being ruled by them. To train this, you can use a simple exercise. Whenever an emotion arises, whether it be irritation or jealousy, stop and question 4 things. 1. What am I feeling? 2. Due to what? 3. Is this emotion the real deal, or a mask hiding something deeper? 4. What does this emotion want me to do? If you can, write it down. Writing forces the prefrontal cortex to process information that emotion tries to skip. It slows the loop. It reclaims awareness. With practice, you will learn to catch the emotions at the moment they arise. You'll feel a flicker of anger and be able to trace back to its origin. You'll see jealousy before it forms resentment. You'll notice sadness before it forms despair. Each time, you'll gain 1 second more of awareness, 1 second more of choice. Those seconds add up until they form a new kind of mind, one which deliberately navigates chaos. At this level, your words change. You no longer speak from reaction, but from strategy. Conversations become smoother. Conflicts lose their heat. You start to understand what people need, not just what they say. But something else happens too, something darker. As your perception sharpens, you start seeing weaknesses in others, in yourself. The human mind is predictable. The same fears, the same desires, the same defenses repeat over and over. You start to notice how easily emotions can be steered, how a pause can create guilt, how silence can make others reveal what they meant to hide. And here is the turning point. When a person realizes how easily it is to influence, the mind has to decide what type of power it wants. Metacognition may turn emotion into understanding, or it into leverage. It may create empathy, or it may create manipulation. The difference isn't in the skill, it's in the intention behind it. If you use it to connect, you become emotionally intelligent. If you use it for control, you become dangerous. As you continue through this series, you will learn both edges of this blade, how to master the mind, and how to protect it from those who already use these tools against you. For now, remember that awareness is not always comfortable, but it's always truth. And truth, once awoken, demands responsibility. Next, we go deeper. You'll see how this same power, which can uplift consciousness, can also be used to corrupt it. You'll meet the part of the mind that wears empathy as a mask, and you will see why the most intelligent people are often the most dangerous ones. Awareness before reaction, observation before speech. That is where power begins. Awareness can be a light. It can also be a mirror, and not all reflections are gentle. The deeper you look, the clearer you start seeing the machinery that's behind emotion, thought, and choice. You no longer can pretend human behavior is random. It is not. It is a network of patterns, habits, and triggers, repeating themselves endlessly across phases and centuries. When fully awakened, metacognition shows you the code. It reveals emotion is not chaos, but circuitry. Every person operates through their own set of triggers, beliefs, and hidden fears. Once you learn to see the sequence, you can predict what someone will feel before they feel it. You can see what they will say before the words even form. It is a type of psychological clairvoyance, and it is intoxicating. But this is where awareness starts to darken, because once you can predict, you can also influence. You can make a person feel secure, and then take that security away as a means of creating dependence. You can mirror their emotions until they feel utterly trusting, then mold their decisions without ever giving a direct order. You can plant an idea so subtly they defend it as their own. This is not imagination. This is the dark edge of metacognition, the point where empathy mutates into manipulation. The mind that learns to observe can just as easily learn to exploit. Thoth once wrote that every gift of the spirit becomes a curse when it loses its heart. The same awareness which can free the self can also enslave others. To understand this is to understand why most dangerous manipulators are not violent or loud. They're observant. They're calm. They listen more than they speak. They make you feel seen while quietly rearranging your sense of truth. They use silence as a weapon. It is one of the oldest tools of control. It is when someone pauses just long enough for you to fill the gap that your nervous system rushes to complete the pattern. You begin to talk, to explain, to defend. And in that moment, you reveal what they wanted to know all along. Silence becomes pressure. Stillness becomes dominance. In the ancient schools of initiation, silence had been taught as a sacred discipline. But it is a tool of psychological warfare when it falls into the wrong hands. A master of metacognition can make you confess with a look, doubt your judgment by a pause, or crave its validation through absence. They also understand conditioning. They reward you when you comply and withdraw warmth when you resist. They create invisible loops wherein your emotions become predictable responses to their behavior. Over time, you stop acting from freedom and start acting from programming. Every manipulator knows this truth. People are not controlled through brute force, but through rhythm. If you can control the rhythm of another's emotions, the ups and downs of reward and rejection, you control their world. This is not supernatural. It is the science of nervous systems interacting, and most never realize it is happening. The manipulators who practice this are not always malicious at the beginning. Some start as observers, wanting only to understand. They notice how attention, tone, and timing change how people respond. They start to experiment, and then curiosity turns into temptation. How easily trust bends. How quickly affection can be manufactured. The line between understanding and using begins to disappear. As Thoth called it, this was a corruption of light. Knowledge becomes predatory when awareness is divorced from compassion. It's subtle. You may not even realize it is taking place in yourself. You start reading people far too quickly. You anticipate their words, their motives, and somewhere deep down, you begin to feel superior. That is the first sign of the fall. Because, if left unbalanced, metacognition can isolate you. It separates you from the flow of normal emotion. You begin to calculate when others feel. You see their reactions like algorithms, predictable and slow. The warmth of connection begins to fade, replaced by quiet analysis. It feels powerful. It also feels lonely. Empathy becomes performance. Relationships become games. You start testing people and not trusting them. You begin to watch expressions and not listen to words. You stop feeling seen because you no longer let yourself be vulnerable. This is the birth of the monster, not in cruelty, but in detachment. A mind so trained to observe, while forgetting how to participate. A heart that still beats but no longer opens. It is not evil by intention, this monster. It's just empty. It wants control because control feels safer than connection. It manipulates because manipulation feels easier than trust. It hides behind intellect because intellect feels cleaner than emotion. And yet, even in the depth of this darkness, there is possibility, for the same precision that can dissect emotions can also heal them. If awareness has led you away from empathy, awareness can also bring you back. The difference is humility, the readiness to feel again, to be wrong, to be human. In the grimoire of the mind, Thoth warned that the most dangerous illusion is the belief that understanding replaces feeling. He wrote, "To see truth without compassion is to hold fire without light." In order to master the work of metacognition, you have to hold both clarity and warmth, observation and heart. Observer has to stay connected with what is being observed. Without that link, knowledge collapses into calculation. So how do you stay balanced? By remembering that emotions are not weaknesses to overcome, but instruments to tune. The goal is not to silence them, but to learn their frequencies. Anger reveals boundaries. Fear reveals attachment. Sadness reveals love. Every emotion carries instruction. If you can listen without judgment, the same skill that can deceive can also heal. Try this the next time you are in conversation. Listen for the emotion behind the words, not to manipulate, but to understand. Feel the pulse beneath someone's tone. Sense what is unsaid. Then respond not with what you think they expect, but with truth, calm, measured, and aware. This is how awareness regains its soul. A mind that perceives without heart becomes shadow, and a mind which perceives through compassion becomes light. One sees the mechanism, while the other sees the person. The point is that, as you develop these skills, you also need to remember, power and empathy grow together. Without empathy, intelligence is cruelty. Without intelligence, empathy is blindness. The real trick is learning to walk between both. In the following section, we start to explain how metacognition can be molded into mastery, how one's awareness can come to protect, rather than harm, how to create a mind that is unshakable yet still human. You have seen the light, you have seen the shadow. Now you will learn how to stand at the center of both. Power without awareness is chaos. Awareness without balance is danger. But when the two are melded together, something magical happens. The mind is no longer a battleground, but an instrument. It no longer reacts but commands. Metacognition in its finest form is not analysis, it is presence. It is the ability to see every movement of thought and emotion without being carried away by either. And it is not suppression, it is sovereignty. The mind becomes a servant of consciousness instead of its ruler. But that state can be reached only when it is observed without judgment. Most people watch themselves through the filter of guilt or pride, labeling every thought good or bad, every emotion success or failure. But true awareness has no moral tone. It simply sees. It says, this is anger, this is fear, this is joy. It does not ask if it should exist. It allows everything to reveal its shape. Imagine sitting beside a river. Thoughts and emotions pass like currents. Some are calm, some are violent. Most people jump in. They fight the flow or chase it. The metacognitive mind sits on the shore. It watches. It feels the pull but does not obey it. It knows that the current is not the self. The river flows. The watcher remains. In this stillness, clarity arises. You begin to notice every emotion has a story. Every thought carries an inheritance. Most of what moves through you is not even yours. It's the echo of parents, culture, memory, survival. It's ancient programming masquerading as identity. When you start to track these patterns, something remarkable happens. The loop weakens. The thought says, I will fail. And instead of obeying, you ask, who taught me that? You trace it back to a moment, a sentence, a fear that was never yours. Awareness interrupts the loop. It rewires the script. This is the core of mental freedom. The absence of thought is not a requirement. That you are not the thought. You are the observer who decides which patterns remain and which dissolve. At first, this feels like silence. Then it begins to feel like power. The same mind that once pulled you into conflict now becomes the source of command. You start to choose your responses with precision. You begin to decide when to speak, when to wait, when to feel, and when to release. The nervous system starts to follow. What used to trigger panic now meets stillness. What used to cause anger now reveals data. You start to feel space expanding between events and reaction. That space is mastery. It's where you start controlling the energy, rather than being controlled by it. The ancients referred to this moment as the awakening of the inner ruler, called by the Egyptians the seat of Thoth within the human mind. It is a moment when thought and awareness merge. The voice that once whispered confusion now speaks with clear instruction. But the mastery of thought does not mean domination. It means cooperation. The conscious and the unconscious start to move as one. You start sensing how your body and your mind mirror each other. Every emotion is a chemical, every thought an electrical pulse, and every belief leaves a pattern in the flesh. This is why awareness heals. When you observe emotion instead of resisting it, the nervous system stabilizes, stress hormones drop, the heart rate evens, the breath deepens, the body listens to awareness as if it were command. And over time, the body starts to trust the mind again. It realizes it is safe. The cells that once reacted to chaos begin to respond to coherence. This is not metaphor, it is biology. Studies show that conscious attention alters neural firing patterns, slows inflammation, and rewires pain perception. Awareness is medicine. And yet, in that mastery lies temptation. The more control you get, the easier it is to slip into arrogance. The feeling of being the one who sees what others cannot can turn cold. If you forget humility, then the observer becomes a judge. And once judgment enters, the observer again becomes the manipulator. To prevent this fall, you must anchor awareness in compassion. Every time you see a weakness in another, remember how it feels to be trapped inside your own. Every time you recognize fear in someone's words, remember that you have spoken from fear too. It is this memory that keeps the observer human. It is this memory that keeps knowledge from turning into superiority. Metacognition is not intended to separate you from humanity, but rather to return you to it consciously. What's to be aimed at is not to be untouchable, but to be unshaken while feeling deeply. Here lies the paradox. The more aware you become, the more sensitive you are. You feel everything with clarity, pain, joy, tension, truth, but you are no longer overwhelmed by it. Sensitivity without collapse is strength. It is the mind in balance with the heart. There comes a point in that awareness where it reaches silence. A thought arises and dissolves, offering no resistance. An emotion stirs and fades away without consequence. You act not from impulse, but from alignment. You become both participant and witness in every moment. What the ancients called the golden state, the center between chaos and control. It is not emptiness but presence. In that state, every decision feels guided, every emotion purposeful, every word intentional. You no longer try to manipulate or defend. You simply express truth without distortion. And when you do, something remarkable happens in the outer world. People respond differently to you. They feel the stillness before you have said a word. They reflect your calm. Conflicts soften. Conversations slow down. Influence arises on its own. You do not need to push it. Presence itself becomes power. This is the real secret of metacognition. It was never about outsmarting others. It was about reclaiming sovereignty over yourself. Because once you master your own patterns, nobody can use them against you. In the following section, we shall see how this state of awareness translates into the world, how observation becomes leadership, presence becomes influence, and how to protect this clarity from those who might seek to take advantage of it. Remember this as we go along. Awareness is not the end of the path. It's the beginning of responsibility. Once you know the mechanism of emotion and thought, you hold the code of human behavior in your hands. Use it to build, not to break. Every thought is an architect. Every emotion is a builder. And together, they construct the invisible architecture through which your life unfolds. The walls are made of beliefs. The doors are choices. The windows are perception. Most of us live inside these structures without realizing we are the ones who built them. Metacognition gives you the blueprint. It shows you that the house is not fate. It is design. And what is designed may always be redesigned. This is where awareness becomes influence. Once you understand how the architecture of thought and emotion shapes your own reality, you begin to see how it shapes the worlds of others. You begin to notice how language and tone and energy shift behavior. You realize that people are always responding to unseen patterns rather than to the surface of words. Every conversation is an exchange of vibration before it's an exchange of information. At its purest, this understanding creates empathy. You learn to guide communication gently, to meet others where they are without forcing them into your rhythm. At its darkest, it becomes manipulation. You learn to bend emotions, to steer conversations, to plant ideas. Both paths use the same tools. The difference is intention. To keep your balance, you have to see influence as sacred architecture. The builder who respects power knows that one misplaced stone can bring down the entire structure. Every word is weight. Every silence is space. The goal is harmony, not control. First, observe how your own energy shifts the atmosphere of a room. When you walk in, the field changes. You feel it. The nervous systems around you respond to your breath, your pace, your attention. It's not your imagination, it's resonance. Your brain emits electromagnetic fields that synchronize with others. Coherent states spread calm. Chaotic states spread tension. A person anchored in awareness stabilizes everyone near them. That is real influence. Observe next time you speak with a person in distress. Before saying a word, slow your breathing. Lower your tone of voice just a bit. Let your attention fall completely on them. You'll witness the change begin straight away. The shoulders drop. Their eyes soften. The cadence of your calm becomes their cadence. You've changed their state without any persuasion. You have established stability within the space that exists between two minds. This is the foundation of emotional leadership. You are no longer controlling outcomes. You are shaping environments. The architect does not argue with the materials. The architect designs the conditions in which the materials take their form. When you reach this level, your presence will become more powerful than your words. Yet the danger remains. That same presence which can heal may also dominate. You could use calm to disarm, silence to manipulate, and warmth to extract trust. This is where moral awareness needs to anchor the practice. Power not tempered by purpose becomes corrosion. To maintain balance, Thoth's ancient teaching remains simple. Command nothing that you would not want to become. The thoughts and emotions you project are not separate from you. Every command sent outward returns as echo. Influence is not linear. It circulates. If you plant fear, you will live within it. If you radiate peace, it will build around you like a fortress. Begin to use language as architecture. The most powerful communicators know that words are blueprints. Each one directs attention. Each one creates focus. When you speak, listen to how the sound feels inside your body. Words spoken from the chest carry stability. Words spoken from the head carry precision. Words spoken from the heart carry truth. The listener feels the difference even when they cannot explain it. Do not use filler language and empty affirmations. They are the walls without foundation. Speak only that which you can inhabit. The moment a word leaves your lips, it becomes an edifice in another's brain. If the edifice is not stable, it falls and hurts trust. If it is coherent, however, it becomes shelter. Metacommunication is the art of speaking from awareness rather than impulse. It involves pausing before you speak to see the ripple before it moves. It involves asking yourself 3 questions before you express anything. Is that true? Is it necessary? Is it in alignment with who I want to become? These 3 questions form a gate. When your words pass through it, they carry power that is pure. That which cannot pass through should remain unspoken. Many times, the silence of restraint is much louder than the noise of reaction. Now consider thought as internal language. Every unspoken phrase is a design within your own architecture. If your inner voice speaks chaos, your outer world becomes unstable. If your inner dialogue is measured and clear, your outer world reflects order. The mind obeys the pattern it hears most often. This is why daily awareness practice is so vital. Take time every day where you silently observe your thoughts. Do not argue with them. Do not replace those thoughts with positive ones. Just watch. When a thought rises, inquire whether it has a place in the house you want to live in. If it does not serve, allow it to dissolve. Over time, this creates a mental minimalism. Only the thoughts serving your purpose remain. The rest fall into stillness. In that stillness, something else awakens. Intuition. The quiet intelligence beneath logic starts to speak again. It does not speak in sentences. It speaks in direction, in feeling, in knowing. When the noise of analysis falls away, intuition becomes audible. This is the architect's compass. It points without explaining. It guides without commanding. History's greatest leaders, artists, and mystics all shared this state. They didn't control minds. They steered fields of energy. They navigated rooms as if invisible geometries came with them. This wasn't charisma, it was coherence. The key to maintaining this coherence lies in emotional alignment. Every time you speak a word that contradicts what you feel, your field fractures slightly. Over time, those fractures create static. People sense it as distrust. But when word, thought, and emotion align in perfect congruence, you become transparent. Transparency is the highest form of influence because it requires no defense. Others feel safety in your presence because nothing is hidden. This was the secret that architects of wisdom knew about. To shape reality, you must first become whole. Fragmented energy builds fragile worlds. Unified energy builds lasting ones. As this awareness deepens, you will notice another change. Manipulators lose their hold. You begin to see their tactics clearly. The pause that is supposed to make you feel guilty, words intended to instill doubt, rhythms of reward and withdrawal. You don't fight them, you merely see them. And in seeing, the power is gone. Awareness dissolves manipulation, just as light does shadow. It does not need argument, just presence. In this way, metacognition becomes protection. You no longer have to guard your mind in fear, because nothing enters without being seen. You no longer absorb emotional contagion. You transmute it. You feel anger approach, and you turn it into clarity. You feel sadness approach, and you turn it into empathy. You feel deception approach, and you turn it into understanding. Mastery in motion, that is what this is. The architecture of thought becomes the fortress of spirit. But this is not where it stops. There is a deeper level. Awareness expands from observation into creation. The mind that initially reacted to the world starts to shape it literally. The observer becomes the creator. The architect becomes the living blueprint. In the final part, we'll step into this space. You will learn how awareness becomes manifestation, how emotion becomes instruction, and how the same mind that can analyze and protect can also create reality itself. You have walked through the darkness and the balance. Now, prepare to enter the light. Creation begins where awareness becomes deliberate. Up until now you have learned to observe, to balance, and to build. But there is a higher state beyond control and protection. It is the ability to generate reality from within. The mind that commands itself does not wait for circumstances to change. It organizes them. It does this not through effort, but through coherence. Every coherent thought sends an instruction to matter. Every steady emotion strengthens that instruction. The world around you is not separate from the energy that leaves your body each moment. The vibration of your mind writes itself into the field like ink on water. It expands outward, invisible but precise. This is not magic. It is the natural extension of awareness. When the brain and heart enter resonance, the electromagnetic field around the body becomes ordered. This order is not passive. It draws compatible energy. It repels what does not match. The more disciplined your awareness, the clearer your field becomes. Life begins to mirror it. Creation starts with inner alignment. The observer, the thinker, and the feeler must become one voice. When you think peace but feel fear, the field receives contradiction. Nothing moves. When you think peace and feel peace, reality responds like a perfect echo. Every ancient teaching points to this truth in different words. Prayer, intention, affirmation, spell. They are all the same principle. Focused vibration spoken with presence. Begin each morning with stillness. Sit quietly until you can sense your thoughts without judgment. Then choose one feeling you wish to experience that day. Gratitude, clarity, strength. Bring it into your chest. Let your breath carry it through the body until every cell vibrates with that emotion. Now speak a single phrase that represents your intention. Speak slowly and mean it. The phrase is not for the air. It is for the cells. It is for the field. When the words leave you, remain silent. Let the vibration settle. Do not doubt it. Doubt breaks coherence. Faith is not belief. It is consistency. The body listens to consistency. As the day unfolds, you will feel the pull of old patterns. Worrying will whisper. Anger will rise. When it does, do not fight it. Return to observation. Watch it. feel the current without falling in. Every time you return to stillness, you strengthen coherence. This is how reality reshapes itself, slowly, quietly, from the inside out. But mastery carries responsibility. Once you understand that every emotion and thought projects energy, you see that creation is constant. You are never not creating. Every complaint is a command. Every word of gratitude is a seed. Every fearful image is a blueprint. The field does not rest. It mirrors whatever you give it. This is why metacognition, when purified, becomes reverence. You begin to treat thought as sacred. You speak carefully. You feel deliberately. You begin to sense that each moment of awareness is participation in a universal act of design. The difference between the monster and the master is intention. The monster uses awareness to bend others. The master uses it to align with truth. One manipulates. The other harmonizes. One drains energy. The other restores it. Both understand the same mechanics, but only one remembers compassion. There will be days when control feels easier than understanding, when detachment seems safer than love, when silence feels more powerful than connection. In those moments, remember the lesson that began this journey. Awareness is not the end. It is the beginning of responsibility. To see clearly is to care deeply. Practice awareness not to dominate, but to illuminate. Use it to bring order where there is chaos, to bring calm where there is fear, to bring truth where there is noise. This is the highest use of mind. Each evening, close the day with reflection. Ask what you created today through thought, word, and emotion. Do not judge. Simply see. Awareness corrects through clarity, not through punishment. End the reflection with one phrase. Speak it softly to the field and to yourself. I am the architect of my peace. That phrase closes the circle. The mind that once reacted now designs. The emotions that once ruled now obey awareness. The words that once wounded now create. When you live this way long enough, a quiet shift occurs. You stop trying to control life. You begin to collaborate with it. Reality no longer feels like something outside you. It feels like an extension of your consciousness, moving in patterns of reflection and return. You walk through the world as if everything is listening. Because it is. You have learned to see through emotion, to think about thought, to observe without judgment, to build without fear, and to create without control. This is the full cycle of metacognition. Awareness, balance, architecture, creation. Now, take a slow breath. Feel the stillness behind it. That stillness is the space where thought becomes form. It is the meeting point between the mind and the world. Thank you for walking this path. If you have reached this point, you already know the truth that began this journey. Power without compassion destroys. Awareness without love blinds. But when the two unite, the mind becomes light. You are the observer. You are the architect. You are the living thought shaping itself into being. Thank you for listening. Wherever you are, may you rest in awareness. May your thoughts serve you. May your heart remain open. And may you remember, always, that your reality begins in silence. Good night.